Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Josh. So what do we have on our agenda for today? We'll kick things off with a little bit of an introduction so that you folks can get to know me a little bit better. I'm sure many of you have gotten to know Josh, and so I'll introduce myself. Then what we'll do is we'll chit-chat some about the IELTS exam as a whole, okay, and looking at the format and things like that. Following our overview, we will take a look at two different versions of the IELTS exam. There's an academic version and there is a general training version. So some key differences for us to note as we go through this exam. What I'll be doing is I'll provide you folks with some study tips and some resources for each of the 4 sections. Okay, our goal here is to try and maximize our test scores to do the best that we can on test day. Okay, and of course, we'll have ourselves a Q&A period so that you folks can ask any questions that you have. As we go through our webinar today, please record your questions down so that you have them ready to go, and I'll be answering any and all of our questions at the end here. I'll be presenting for about 20 minutes or so here, okay? So first of all, who the heck am I? As I've said, my name is Jamie Benz. I've been a childhood friend with Josh's for a long time, and where Josh's area of expertise is in immigration, mine is in teaching. I'm working as a teacher with the Toronto District School Board and have been working there for a few years now. My academic career began at Carleton University in Ottawa, where I graduated with high honors in a Bachelor of Arts majoring in history. Okay, following that, I went to Halifax, Nova Scotia at Dalhousie University, where I did another degree in history. I did a Master's of Arts majoring in history, and I had the opportunity to write a really big essay, a 100-page thesis. So something I'm proud of and consider myself a bit of an expert writer. But I didn't finish there. I was hungry for some more school, and so I decided I wanted to pursue teaching as a career. And so I went to the University of Toronto, who has the most prestigious Teachers College in all of Canada. And there I got my second master's degree, a master's in teaching. Throughout my academic career and throughout my teaching career, as a teacher at the Toronto District School Board, as a tutor, as a teaching assistant, as a volunteer, I've had the opportunity to work with well over 100 students to help them improve their English skills. And also working with students and learners with a wide variety of backgrounds and a wide variety, from those who really didn't know a single word of English to those who knew a little bit more and to those who are near proficient. But enough about me. Let's take a look at this IELTS exam, okay? The IELTS exam it's the International English Language Testing Systems. That's what it stands for, okay? And it's a very popular English language test that's used for many in order to get study permits or permanent residence. The test is about 2 hours and 45 minutes, but this can be a little bit misleading, and I'll explain why shortly, okay? There's 4 sections of the test. And the 4 sections include 1 section on listening, 1 on writing, another on reading, and a 4th on speaking. Here's where the test time becomes a bit tricky. The listening section is about 30 minutes. The writing section and the reading section are each 60 minutes. And the speaking section is about 11 to 15 minutes. The listening, reading, and writing sections all have to be completed on the same day. And there's no breaks between the tests. What does this mean? This means that we have to sit down and take this test for 2 hours and 30 minutes straight, which makes for a very difficult testing scenario. Okay, so it's something that we need to be aware of to best prepare. The speaking section, much shorter, right? As I said, 11 to 14 minutes. And you can actually do this 1 week prior to test day or 1 week after test day. Okay, so really 2 hours and 30 minutes writing this test. Not easy. There are two versions of this test. There's the academic version and there's the general training version. Okay, the academic version is most often for applying to universities, and the general training, for example, applying to, say, a workplace or something of that nature. The two different versions only affects the reading section and the writing section. Okay, so the listening and speaking, those are the same regardless of whether or not we're doing the academic or the general training. Now, for each of the reading and writing sections, whether it's academic or it's general, the number of questions and the time will remain the same. Okay, so for each, it's 60 minutes with 40 questions to answer. Okay, well then, what's different? Well, there's a few things. First, the types of passages that you'll encounter or that you'll be asked to write. Okay, so for example, in the academic version, for reading, you're going to have longer passages with a bit more complicated language. Okay, for the writing section, it differs where the general training version has you writing a letter or an email of sorts, trying to ask for some information. Okay, so a little bit different in terms of the passages that we encounter. Another difference is related to scoring. Okay, the test makers recognize that the academic version can be a bit tougher than the general version. So making mistakes in the general version will decrease your score more significantly than in the academic version. Now, we want to avoid any mistakes, right? We're trying to maximize our test scores to the best of our abilities. Third here, one of the differences is related to assessment. Okay, so how we are going to be marked differs for the academic versus the general as it relates to the writing section. Okay, and so for the writing section for the academic test takers, this is focused a bit more heavily on analyzing. Okay, whereas for the general training, it's focused a little bit more on your ability to present information. Let's jump into the good stuff. Let's talk about some tips for each of our sections, and we'll kick things off here with the listening section. The first tip I have for us is to listen to as much English as you can, especially things like TV shows or movies, which provide you with a visual cue to help understand what in the heck is being said in the video, what's being watched. Okay, I recommend that we choose a show or a movie that we're familiar with in our first language. Okay, this again will help improve our understanding because we know what to expect in what we're watching. For the listening section, we'll want to follow the exact instructions. Okay, there are 4 recordings that we'll listen to in the listening section, and you only get an opportunity to listen to it once. So highlighting keywords and knowing what to listen for really helps to improve our scores. This makes us strategically listen as opposed to very passively kind of sitting back and waiting. Is it going to come? When we highlight keywords and we know what to listen for, we can be more active in our listening skills. This is an international English language test. It's not only used in Canada. I think it's a whole bunch of countries that use it. I think as many as 140. And so you will encounter different kinds of voices and different kinds of accents. Okay, and so this is something we'll want to practice so that we are prepared and we don't have any surprises on test day. Okay, so you may hear an accent from Australia. You may hear a British accent. You may hear a North American accent. Okay, let's move to the reading section. Our first tip for us in the reading section is to divide our time for each reading passage. okay? You'll have 60 minutes for this section. You'll have 3 reading passages. So we don't want to spend 40 minutes on the first reading passage, excuse me, because we won't have enough time for the rest. We want to scan the passage to get an idea of what it's about, okay? And this is something that I can really help us with in one-on-one sessions to speak to identifying keywords, things like topic sentences, concluding sentences, oh, this paragraph has a lot of detail, here's what that detail is about, and identifying these different parts to a reading passage can really help our strategic reading. I know on test day, when I sit down for a test, I'm always ready to answer everything, right? I'm practiced, I've put in the time, I'm excited to go, but we need to deep breath, take it one question at a time so that we can be as efficient and as effective as possible, okay? The test makers have designed the IELTS test to be as fair as possible. So there's no expectation for us to be bringing in outside information into the reading passage or into our answers, okay? How about the writing section? We want to make sure that we write enough to reach the word limit. Failing to reach the word limit will lead to a deduction in marks, okay? And this will mean a lower score. We don't want that. The first task in the writing section is 150 word minimum, and the second task is 250 words minimum, okay? So we need to practice writing that amount, okay? We want to write neatly, okay? I've looked over many tests and written work, and when things aren't written neatly, it becomes a lot more difficult to figure out what the student or the learner was trying to say. We want to make the job of the test scorer as easy as possible. So writing neatly can really help to maintain the kind of benefit of the doubt from the test scorer. As we write, oftentimes new ideas comes to mind, which is great, but it can sometimes lead to a bit of rambling in our writing. We want to avoid this. We want to write in a very clear, concise, specific kind of way, okay? And so sticking to the standard outline of doing an introduction, then a body, and then a conclusion will really help to have effective writing. For the writing section, we can feel free to get creative, okay? And we want to make sure that our responses cover every question that's being asked or the entirety of the topic, okay? Let's take a look at our speaking section. The speaking section is going to consist of 3 parts, okay? And it's done in an interview format. And the interview starts off with an introduction. So this is something that we certainly want to practice because we know exactly what to expect. So you want to introduce yourself politely to the interviewer, right? We want to get off to a good start. And because we know that we're introducing ourselves to start, we can anticipate, we can expect certain questions to come our way. And so it could be, a question asking us about our home life, our family life, our interests. Having a prepared answer will not only help us to do well for this part of the speaking section, but will also help to build confidence for the next part of the speaking section, right? And when we're on test day, we might be a little bit more nervous, a little bit anxious, and so building confidence during the test is always an important thing to do. We want to time ourselves when we're practicing, okay? Especially as speaking English becomes a strength for you, it's going to become easier and easier to talk. I know with myself, I love to talk. You can't shut me up, okay? So for this kind of format, timing yourself is very important, right? The speaking section is very quick. And so we want to make sure that we are answering what's being asked of us within the time that we're given. Avoid yes/no questions, okay? The test scorer is marking us for our range of vocabulary, our grammar, our pronunciation, all sorts of things, Okay, providing a yes or no answer doesn't give the test scorer an opportunity to go, check, 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 check. Gosh, Jamie really crushed this speaking section. Okay, do note that your accent is not going to affect your score. Okay, how about some general study tips? Okay, not specific to any of our sections, but good studying habits. The first thing, practice, practice, practice. And when you think you're finished practicing, it's time to practice some more. Okay, we want to practice as much as we can. Okay, we want to identify our strengths and our weaknesses. I recognize that you folks like myself, we don't have an unlimited amount of time to be spending on this, right? And so we need to manage our time to the best of our abilities. Okay, so identifying areas that you need to work on more is important. That said, don't forget to also practice in areas that you're strong at. Okay, we want to make sure that we are confident and ready to go on test day. Including English in your everyday life is going to have a significant impact on improving your English language skills. Learning languages very much builds on itself, right? And it has a kind of compounding factor here. So even adding just a little bit of English in your everyday life adds up and adds up and adds up, and it will really help you with a test like this. Sleep. Gosh, sleep is so important, okay? And it can be especially challenging the night before a test when we may feel a little bit more stressed, we may feel a little bit more anxious or excited. Developing a consistent nighttime routine so that you can tell your brain, hey, it's time to go to bed, not keep scrolling on Instagram. That will help so that the night before test day, you're able to be well rested and ready to go for your test. So, need one-on-one help. Studying alone is going to be challenging. It's always challenging to study on your own, okay? Especially if we're thinking about something like the speaking section where it's an interview style format. It's tough to do on our own, right? It can also be tough to figure out how to improve on our weaknesses, okay? And that's where I come in. All right, so I'm here and available to all of you wonderful folks for any one-on-one sessions with me where we can work together, where we can do an initial assessment to see kind of where we're at in a particular section that you want to look at. And I have a whole bunch of activities ready to go, waiting and ready to go for us to really help improve on that particular skill. And those activities range depending on how proficient or how weak you are in that particular area, okay? One-on-one sessions with me are always going to be tailored to your specific needs, okay? So while I have a whole bunch of these activities ready to go, I'm going to tweak them and make significant changes so that they fit your specific needs, right? So maybe if we're really struggling in a particular area, tweaking something so that it fits more with your interests makes it maybe a bit easier to engage with, help improve our practicing habits and be more consistent with our practicing. So I'm offering here a few different packages. I offer a one-on-one session for 1 hour at a $50 rate. Here in this section, in this package, what you'll get is an initial assessment. We'll work on some activities and we'll consolidate our understanding, meaning that we'll make sure that you understand this skill and provide you with something to work on going forward. I also offer a 5-hour session for $200 and a 10-hour session for $350. The advantages of the 5 and 10-hour sessions is that we can do some email correspondence. So let's say you're thinking to yourself, gosh, I have some time and I want to work on an activity. You can say, hey, Jamie, I'd really like to work on my speaking skills. Can you send an activity my way? More than happy to do so. Okay, not only will we be practicing our reading and writing in the emails, but you'll have that activity that we can then take up once we have our session together. Okay. The other thing that we can offer that I can offer in the 5 and 10 hour packages is authentic practice exams. Want to make sure our practicing is as much like test day as possible, right? And so doing those kinds of mock exams or mock tests will be really, really helpful for our studying and to help improve our scores. So that's it for me. I really appreciate you folks tuning in and listening to me. If you're interested, you can sign up for the Visto Prep here. We've got a link in the chat there for you. And now is the time for you folks to ask any questions that you may have.